to Magick Lab on the SOC Radio Network, broadcasting live from our studios in New Zealand, Los Angeles, and New York City. I'm Marie Bargas, also known as the Hollywood Witch, the Pop Psychic, and the Magic Housewife. But tonight, I'm your naughty professor, a magical mad scientist of sorts, and with the help of my trusty lab assistant, pop culture skeptic and guru, Tony Sokol, we're going to be stirring up a nice, hot, boiling cauldron of magic, mystery, and mischief. So, let us show you how to take a whole new look at love, romance, showbiz, fashion, world news, and the secrets of the cosmos through the all-seeing third eye of the future. We're ready to lead you through magical and mystical experiments using ancient knowledge in a modern text. With guest mystics, healers, shamans, and all kinds of fabulous magical people. And you are going to get a chance to get your future read right here.
Hello and welcome to Magick Lab with Tony Sokol and Marie Bargas.
Hi guys. We have a very special guest today. A lot of you have been having issues with the Venus retrograde, and so we invited astrologer James David Wade from Shreveport, Louisiana, to come and answer your questions and give you some advice and hopefully rescue you from some astrological mishaps. Hi, James.
Hi. Hi, James. First, we'd like to know a little bit about you and about retrograde itself. So, you run the Astrology Project.
No, I don't actually. I'm an admin for that. There are some other people that I am associated with who run that. I just happen to be involved with it.
Well, tell us about your association and how you come across as an astrologer. What brings you to astrology?
Well, for me personally, it was a spiritual experience I had that really pulled me into astrology. I'd always been at least somewhat interested in, and then I had a really deep spiritual experience one day on an inner journey, and astrology just really made sense to me, and I really can't explain it better than saying that it was divine. I mean, so astrology has just been my passion ever since that.
Do you have a certain affinity to planets themselves?
Well, I mean, I definitely have an affinity to the various components of astrology, and is in so much as that I connect with the archetypes, and archetypes are like the energies of the universe. So it was easy for me to really dig deep into astrology because I think in that way you have to have a symbolic mind and also a mind that is able to relate to patterns of energy that operates around you in the world.
Right, and go on, Marie.
What astrological sign are you?
I'm a Pisces.
And how are you impacted by the Venus retrograde?
Well, I know exactly how I'm impacted by it because Venus's retrograde periods happen in a pattern. So the last time Venus was retrograde in Aries, moving back into Pisces, was in 2009. And it's actually a very personal story and a little sad, but I was looking back at 2009 and realized that it was connected to a past relationship, and it was definitely lined up with all of my personal astrological configurations at the time. And then the other day, this past relationship just came up out of nowhere, and I was actually crying about it and really thinking what's going on. And then I was like, oh, duh, it's Venus retrograde, and it there it was. So that was actually one of the big important things I was going to note for everyone, was that they should look back 8 years ago, because in March of 2009, we had the same lineup with Venus and Aries retrograde moving back into Pisces. So that will be really key to any discussion we have about this today.
Wow. I can't even remember what I was doing 8 years ago.
I know exactly what I was doing, and I know what I was wearing, and I know what you were wearing, and sadly, I know what you were wearing too. Okay, is a Venus retrograde stronger, or does it have more of an impact? Because all right, Venus only rotates every 243 days. It's every 18 months. I mean, Mercury it zips around all the time. You know, it goes backwards, it goes forwards. First of all, have you ever taken out a telescope and watched the phenomenon?
Well, no, I have not. Forgive me for not.
No, neither have I. Nobody has. I don't think anybody in the world has. I'm the only person who wants to.
Well, I mean, I do actually. I mean, obviously, I follow the movements of the planets, and there's really a cool app if you have a smartphone called I believe it's called Sky Map, and you can hold it up to the sky, and it'll show you where all the planets are. And the fixed stars, and so I do actually enjoy looking to see where everything is. So I mean, in a way, I guess, yeah, I do definitely pay attention to the physical planets, but in astrology, more than anything, I think it has a lot more to do with the timing of the movements of the planets than the physical bodies themselves. And that would be getting into a deep discussion about, you know, the approach to astrology, but anyway, so I'm digressing.
No, we digress. We love digressions. We'll pull you in when you go too far.
That's
okay.
Fish. So we're going to catch you in our net.
Oh wow!
And this is exactly the place to get into deep discussions on what this all means, because what we're doing here at Magick Lab is taking what everyone sees as spooky and saying, no, it's not spooky. Look, this guy has to do math. How spooky is that?
Right.
Now, what would you say is more difficult, a Mercury retrograde or a Venus retrograde? Because we have a lot of fans that are terrified of Mercury retrograde.
Well, I would say that neither of them are scary, and no one should be terrified. Because really, if you're afraid, then it's because you're afraid of your own issues that are brought out during those times. It's not the times themselves. It's something that you personally haven't dealt with.
Huh. I personally have started almost everything in my life new started during a retrograde. Everything. Just happened to work out that way. There was no way around it. Everything.
Did you just say nude? You started everything nude during a retrograde? But
I do that too, actually. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Every time I do something new, I do something nude. So they both happen during retrograde. Every retrograde period, you'll see me in the buff right before I start a new job or put up a bed.
Okay, well, I'll make sure that I don't come to, what is it, New York? Are you in New York? I won't be coming to New York during any retrograde periods.
Don't worry, it'll only be regular. I'm not the cowboy.
This almost sounds like a Venus retrograde, okay?
Oh, yeah?
Well, let's talk about the two signs that are affected the most. And those two signs would be Libra and Taurus. And this is selfish on my part, but I'm a triple Libra. So tell me, James, how am I going to make it?
Well, first of all, I would say that Libra and Taurus are not necessarily most affected, but I would say that anyone who is Venus ruled experiences all the transits of Venus in a very personal way. But for you being someone who is Venus ruled back and forth, upside down, and inside out, I would say that you should definitely expect to start reevaluating how you view things in the world concerning values, romance, partnerships, anything of that nature, and also beauty. Now, since Venus rules Taurus, we could connect that also to personal resources and security and things of that nature. So depending on the house that Venus is in your natal chart, that's also a good indicator. And I don't have your chart, so I couldn't tell you what house your natal Venus is in, unless I looked it up in the ephemeris. But I do know that since you're a Libra rising, then that means that right now Venus is in your 7th house, opposing your ascendant, and so that would indicate that very personal matters connected to partnerships or relationships are coming up for you, and it should affect you in some very personal way. In Aries, it could be something like an argument, or it could be something associated with Aries people, or aggressive.
I would have to say that you're right about that. But does this also mean that all my ex-boyfriends are going to come back? I don't know what to do. I'm scared, James.
Well, not necessarily. I think that a lot of it depends on, like I said, what was going on 8 years ago in 2009, and kind of like trying to figure out, where was I in life then? What was going on? Did I make any rash decisions during that time that had long-term consequences? Or it could be buyer's remorse, because Aries is very impatient, and Venus is desire. Venus is desire, and Aries is impatient. So it's like, I know what I want, and I want it now. And so, that's why they say you shouldn't buy anything new during Venus retrograde. That doesn't include like antiques or reselling, because they're not new. But you shouldn't make any significant purchases. I would say don't purchase anything that exceeds 10% of your yearly income, or whatever the number is that is significant. Because, don't buy a car. Don't buy a new car. Don't buy a new house.
Rodeo Drive.
Don't worry, everything exceeds 10% of my income.
well, whatever I was trying to figure out a good way of relating it to, because it is kind of like vague, ambiguous. Like what is okay to buy? Can I buy toothpaste? Of course you can. But, something that's really going to impact you financially is something that you should put off. And not just until the retrograde ends, because the retrograde lasts from March 4th until April 15th. But Venus will be in her shadow period until May 18th. So in the shadow period of the retrograde has to do with the degree that Venus was in when she stationed retrograde, which is 13 degrees Aries. And Venus will station direct at 26 degrees Pisces. But Venus will not reach 13 degrees Aries again until the 18th of May. And so during that time period, it's still going to be kind of like iffy, kind of just like perhaps you may want to wait a little while longer because that influence will still be in effect.
Now, I have a question. I have somebody who's very close to me who's an Aries. Should I avoid them until April 15th, or can I deal with them?
Are you in a partnership with them? Are you romantically involved? Okay. Well, I don't know if it has anything to do with avoiding them, but it might cause you to reconsider or reevaluate your relationship with this person. And that doesn't necessarily mean bad, because you can reevaluate something and see it, oh, wow, I was undervaluing that. And so because you're reevaluating it. So you're taking another look at it and saying, am I truly attributing the correct amount of worth to whatever this is? You can go up or down with that. And if you take a hard look at this relationship, it might actually turn out that you're not truly valuing this person enough.
Oh, okay. All right.
It could be anything, though.
Down. Okay. Okay. So let's go through some of the other signs who a couple of questions. A lot of things are happening with relationships. I have one client who I just received a message from. His girlfriend was fine on Monday, and today she's passed. Okay. I had another client who went through a sudden, unforeseeable breakup. Her husband just left with another woman. There's a lot of stuff like this going on. Is this symptomatic of the Venus retrograde? It appears to me that it is.
Well, yes. I would say certainly so, because like I said, Venus in Aries is kind of like that, I know what I want and I want it right now kind of thing. and also like connected to the idea of lust, because Mars is very sexual, and Venus can be too. And so Venus in Aries, which Venus is in detriment in Aries, and so Venus is not exactly at her best. You know, she's wearing her red lipstick and she's got her pretty dress on and she's going out. You know, and so you know, she's looking for a good time or something. And I don't mean that as like a woman thing in general. I'm just saying that, like, you know, it's the idea around it.
You're just using the prototypes, and we all know that Mars is. And they'll go on the town together the time.
Well, Tony, I know that you're wonderful in a dress.
I do.
That's so funny.
You've got great legs. I mean, really.
But you see, another thing to consider, though, is that, you know, your client whose husband left her for another woman, you know, like I was talking about, this Venus in Aries might come back to buyer's remorse later. And, you know, it might be, oh, wow, I really screwed up, you know, in leaving my wife for this other person because it was just a lustful thing. And then now I'm stuck with this person and I've lost the person who I didn't truly value.
You know, genuinely, I don't think that most people, if they're going to leave someone for something, it's not generally just because of the lust. It's usually something else that goes with it that makes them make that jump. If it was just the sex. And Venus is love, not sex. So.
Well, right. Well, yes and no. I mean, it just depends on what's going on with Venus. And whenever I said what I said, you know, about the lust and things like that, you know, lust is not just sexual. Lust is wanting something in such a way that you really idealize it and you worship it. And, you know, it requires that you devalue something that you already have and look at something else and say, oh, well, that's a little better. And you're looking over the fence and saying the grass is greener. And yet, really, if you watered your own grass, you know, like the saying says, then perhaps your grass would be green. And so then it comes back to this part where, you know, someone broke up with their, you know, wife or husband or whatever. And then later they realize, well, maybe, oh, wow, this relationship's not working either because I wasn't doing the work I needed to do to tend to, you know, my relationship. So I think that's a multifaceted thing for sure. But I just wanted to clarify that I understand what you're saying, too.
You see, I'm always wary of when people don't jump into things because of a retrograde. If something is going to happen and has no choice but to happen at that time, I think that they should find a way to embrace it and use it to their advantage, which is why Marie is the retrograde renegade. She finds hacks and finds ways around it, which is it's a good about enough time to talk about hacks. What's a good way around? I'm sorry?
I don't want to step on your line. I'm sorry, man. But James, I have clients that want to know, is Venus retrograde a good time to have a spicy affair?
Oh my gosh. Well, like, okay, so when you say spicy affair, are you saying like cheating on someone, or are you meaning like having a good time?
Well, like, obviously.
It's we're not.
I'm talking to you guys from Hollywood, so I'm going to ask the question: is this a good time to have an affair? And what are the chances of a girl getting caught?
I would say that the chances are much greater that you would get caught, and that is probably not a good time to have an affair, but you might be more tempted during this time. You know, Venus retrograde lasts for 40 days and 40 nights, and, you know, and that's very reminiscent of the temptation of Christ in the desert, right? And so it's actually a very good allegorical comparison. And so it's kind of like, are you going to stay virtuous during this time while you're being tempted? You know, because if you do, then you get the true, like, you know, redemptive experience. Or are you going to give in to the temptation and end up really losing out big time in the end? And what I would tell people is, you know, you might think it's a good idea, but then, you know, Venus is going back into Pisces and will station direct conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer. And Chiron can represent either wounding or healing. And so I think that if you were to do something that was less than virtuous, you might take on the martyrdom energy of Pisces rather than the Messiah energy of Pisces.
Ugh, okay, I'll tell them not to. But on the flip side, if a woman is suspecting her husband of cheating, would now be the time to get the private detective?
Well, let me think about that for a second. That's a very interesting question. If a woman were suspecting her husband were cheating, should she get a private detective? I would say that it might work out for her. I'm not sure. That's a very interesting question that I hadn't considered.
I'm talking to you from Hollywood, and my clients want to know: can they cheat and get away with it, or is he cheating? How can I find out? And where did he hide the money?
Okay. Well, I think that if you want to hire a private investigator, this really is a time of reevaluating your relationship. So it probably would be a time in which that would be a thing that you could do. And I think that there would probably be some sort of resolution coming up around, like I said, maybe around the 15th of April, or even into the middle to the end of May. So, but whenever Venus stations next to Chiron, I really feel like the emotional either wounding or healing is going to occur. So they have to be prepared for what they find out. Are they ready to hear the news, kind of thing, if it is true.
Right. So this is a good time to negotiate a prenup, or is it a good time to get engaged or get married, or should we avoid those things during this time?
I think that if it's a relationship that has been ongoing for a long time, I think this is a period of reflection, and that I would wait to form any long-term partnership with anyone, especially a legal partnership, until around the middle to end of May. I would not get married right now. Me personally, as an astrologer, I would not get married or engaged during Venus retrograde. Absolutely not. I'm sorry, I have to laugh a little bit because the idea of that is like horrifying to me personally. I would never do that.
Oh, that's sad. But tell us why you're such an eligible bachelor. No, the people that are listening to us and are chatting want to know a little bit about you. They want to know where can you be found when you're not talking to us online. Talk a little about that before we move on.
Okay. Well, I have a Facebook page. My Facebook page is facebook.com/Pisces Prince, and my website is piscesprince.com. I have an astrology practice, and I do natal chart reports for people and predictive chart reports for people. And the real emphasis that the real point I tend to emphasize is healing and spiritual growth, and helping people to better work with the energy they were born with. So if anyone's interested, then I would love to help, with spiritual growth, or anything along the lines of, just wanting to dig deeper and figure out, what the heck's going on,
So you're offering them something that most astrologers won't. Now, let me tell you why I know this. You're because of the way that you talk about, you're kind of I work at a magazine called Den of Geek, and I am the gangster geek and the horror geek there, because I know all this stuff that no one else knows. So you are, let me guess, are you an astrology geek?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I spend 90% of my day with astrology.
Okay, so when someone comes to you, they know that they're going to get someone who's obsessive on getting the correct answer and as thorough an answer as you're going to give. Am I correct?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm a perfectionist. So, the only thing is with astrology is that we can discuss the energy of whatever is going on, but at the end of the day, I don't know any astrologer who can tell you exactly how it's going to manifest, because it doesn't work that way. And that's one frustration that I hear from other astrologers that I know, is that people want exact answers. And with astrology, there's no way to give an exact answer, but we can tell you what it might look like. It's kind of like saying, you might buy a car, but we wouldn't be able to tell you what color it is, So,
so I'm buying a car.
Are you buying a car? I thought you were buying me a car.
Yes, so we can run off to our hot affair. By the way, I never meditation. I couldn't resist.
This is great.
Now, here's
We
another.
tie it all in here.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
So,
So,
here's another
yes,
question.
I've never met it. Okay, go on.
Hello, I have a question, Anthony.
All right.
Give me a moment. Okay, wasn't I so Libra when I did that? That's crazy. I'm like, please. Okay, so the other question that I have is, I have a lot of clients who also practice magic. Is Venus retrograde a good time to do the lover come back spells?
Well, hey, that's a very interesting question. Well, I think that people will want to do those kind of things more during Venus retrograde, but I don't like to moralize things. So, I mean, I don't know if if the answer is right or wrong or whatnot. I just think that the energy influences people to desire things like that. But then after the retrograde's over, maybe then you'll remember all the reasons why your ex is in the first place.
Okay, so it's caution all the way around then.
Yes, definitely. It's a time to reflect.
It's a time to reflect.
It's a time to watch old TV shows. Watch repeats of shows that you've always liked.
But what about boyfriend is liked? What about that?
Well, what I was going to say is that if you're just looking to have a casual hookup or something, then perhaps Venus retrograde is right for you. I don't know, but at the same time, I would still say be very careful because you might end up getting something like an infection or getting pregnant or something.
Uh-oh.
And so I mean it's just
You
really
really paint the direst of. You paint the direst of situations here.
Well, it's better to be realistic than it is to be too optimistic because I actually have a tendency to view the world through rose-colored glasses, and sometimes I miss things that are very real and very poignant and oftentimes painful. And so I've learned to cover all the bases, including the what people might consider the more negative aspects of it, because I'm trying to be more of a realist with my astrological perspective.
Okay.
I'm trying hard.
And we're trying to corrupt you. So, what evils can you do? No, pulling back on that. Marie, go on.
Why? No. James, you're such a sweet, beautiful, spiritual person. We've got to take you out to party.
No, yeah, I mean, I love to have a good time too. My rising sign is Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is all about having a great time.
Well, there it is.
So I don't want to sound like a stick in the mud in this, but Venus
retrograde. No.
Well, Venus retrograde in Aries is kind of like a Venus is in her sign of detriment, and but Venus is moving. The beautiful thing of this is whenever Venus stations direct in Pisces, Venus is exalted. Mars is going to move out of his sign of rulership because Mars is in Aries, and Mars is going to move into Taurus, which is not so great for Mars, but it actually stabilizes that Martian energy, and then Venus and Mars will be in mutual reception and sextile one another. And so what that means is that the energy is going to be so much better. And even tomorrow evening, Mars moving into Taurus, the energy is going to stabilize some and settle down a little bit. And we're not going to have so much of this, like passion or angst. I think Venus retrograde is a lot of angsty energy. It's kind of like, I'm crying, I miss my ex. Like, I mean, it's just this unsettled, stuff that's going on inside. But I think that a lot of things are going to start settling even as early as tomorrow. So I think that people just need to, take a deep breath and just kind of say, well, I'm just going to wait and I'm going to go meditate right now. Like, how about that? I know that sounds like, maybe that's not as great as having a hot affair, but later on it might prove to be even better.
There's always drugs.
Yeah, Pisces is drugs and alcohol sometimes too, and I know that. But the better ways to escape are through meditation and doing spiritual practices, oftentimes. But I won't say that drugs and alcohol are bad.
No, no, no.
James, what about cuddling and being sweet and cooing? Doesn't that help during a Venus retrograde?
Well, I think so. I think that Venus softens the energy of Aries some. And like I said, tomorrow Mars is going to ingress, which means enter Taurus, and so that's really going to highlight Venus because Venus rules Taurus, and so the energy will become, like I said, more settled and more focused around what makes me feel safe and what makes me feel secure, and what is it that I possess, and so issues concerning security and ownership and values. See, today Mars is at the critical degree in Aries, the 29th degree. It's called anaretic. And so Mars is pressuring everyone to do something. Mars wants action. And, and I'm saying, oh no, wait, because Mars is just putting pressure on you because he's about to leave his sign of rulership. And so that's what all this pressure is about. So if you wait, until Venus stations direct at 26 Pisces next to Chiron, then you'll really start seeing what was behind all of this pressure, and begin to understand what was causing you to think and feel the things that you were thinking and feeling. And so I would say don't give in to Mars's pressure right now, but just kind of let that energy settle for a little while.
Okay. Tony, would you like to ask a question?
I wanted to get into what I was saying before. If you were not to apply astrology the proper way, are there ways to use the retrogrades specifically for, say, a left-handed view of the universe, an inverse universe? Is there ways to make it work for you? Are there ways to align yourself with the energies and all of the going backwards? Can you take advantage of other people that are looking the other way?
Wait, can you take advantage of people? Is that what you said?
I'm just saying, can you use it? Can you use the retrograde, all the negative aspects of retrograde?
Well, no. Everyone is. That's one of the things that I wanted to discuss was like what are the benefits of Venus retrograde?
Okay, so tell us about what retrograde does for us.
Okay, and see what let me preface this by saying that I don't actually consider a lot of things I was discussing negative. I don't whenever I talk to my clients, I tell them in astrology there is no good or bad. It's all energy and it's all what you do with it. And so there can be positive outcomes or there can be negative outcomes depending on, choices we make, because in the paradigm of this universe, we do at least have, if not free will, then an illusion of free will. So choices are what matter the most in any of these periods. But with retrogrades, it's all about turning inward and examining our internal world. And so, because when you really think about it, this really gets deep and psychological. Because during a retrograde period, like Venus retrograde, we might start looking back and thinking, I really do miss that person. It really wasn't quite as bad as I thought it was, and maybe it could work out this time, and or whatever. But what is that really rooted in? What is Venus trying to show us there? What Venus is trying to show us and teach us is that we're not valuing ourselves enough, because that insecurity is tied to issues with Venus. Like, do we love ourselves? Do we have self-worth? Are we secure in who we are? Can we be alone? Are we okay with just being where we are in our current relationship, or are we unsatiable? And it all really just comes back to ourselves, and it comes back to us. So it comes back to an internal process that's happening, and causes us to say, I have these feelings, they're real, they're valid, and I have these thoughts, and they're real, they're valid. So what's the root? And Venus is trying to help show us where our insecurities are. and and what areas of our lives need to be reevaluated so that we can understand our true worth.
Okay, we're going to stay away from non-self-worth for a second, but let's talk about the things that. What are you insatiable for? What are you? What is it? What is it that will move a Pisces forward in this? Like, what's going to bring them back to a past what? What can they not get enough of?
Well, I mean, for me, it's a pretty personal story. I don't know if it's okay for me to share, like,
only as much as you want, because there's dozens of listeners.
Okay, well, I mean, it's cool with me. I've written about it on my website,
okay.
So it connects back to a relationship I had, and I was driving the other day, and I just got overwhelmed emotionally about an ex, and just started crying and stuff. And I was like, what the hell? Why am I crying? What is going on? And I'm just like sobbing, boohooing, all this stuff. And then I realized it was Venus retrograde, bringing up a lot of feelings that I, obviously had suppressed in something that was very painful for me. And so this period of time has caused me to really reflect on what I can do to heal, or, even if it takes me writing a letter to apologize, to my ex for some things I did, and not that I did a lot of really terrible things, but, just to reconcile. And, because Venus moving back into Pisces conjunct Chiron, Venus wants to heal. Venus wants to heal the emotional and spiritual wounds, because Venus will be in Pisces. Pisces is emotionality and spirituality and how we connect with everyone. And Pisces energy is all about, there is no separation. We are all one, in the universe. And there are no barriers. Neptune is in Pisces right now. Neptune dissolves things. And so for me, it's causing me to really investigate, why I still have some feelings that I have, and what can I do to rectify a situation that really went south, and harmonize things, because Venus acts as a harmonizing energy. Venus wants harmony, balance, peace. Those are all Venus themes. So, I mean, because disharmony is not beautiful, and Venus likes beauty. So, does that answer your question?
It gets into it, yes. Marie, back to you.
Oh, you want to know what I'm obsessed with?
Yes.
We don't have enough time.
It's true.
We don't have enough time to do that. But what I am thinking about over this particular Venus retrograde is organizing, cleaning. James and I talked about this earlier, and for some reason, I was motivated to clean my entire house to the extent that you can eat off the...
And it was so perfect for you.
I know. But emotionally, I am a triple Libra. I have loved all of my exes passionately. I don't think I can handle the emotional weight of reviewing every single romance. There are some that I like less than others, but I love them all. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had relationships with them. But
there's a love song in that.
I know. No, but here's my on-air confession. I have a thing for bad boys. I have a thing for bad boys.
Well, yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Oh yeah, well, triple Libra. I'm looking for Mars in all ways, shapes, and forms.
Right. Yeah, because you have Aries on your 7th house cusp, your descendant, and that's often.
Are you sure you're pronouncing that right?
Your descendant.
No.
Okay. Well, go ahead, James.
Oh well. So the sign that is on your 7th house cusp, and it's your descendant. It often is an indicator of the type of partner you seek. And so, Mars is opposite Aries is opposite your Libra ascendant on your descendant. And so, you're going to seek that, super like egotistical or hyper masculine, or like you're saying, bad boy energy. You want the god to go with your divine goddess, divine feminine self. So.
I know. I mean, and I think that that's probably why I have a lot of clients in entertainment, because women in entertainment seem to gravitate towards the bad boys because they ultimately end up, making platinum records and and being super sexy, and that is my emotional crack, I think.
Well, I would say that opposites can sometimes work out, but it's a lot easier to work with some other energies than it is opposite energies, because they require a lot of balance. So if you're not firm in who you are, then that balance is never going to be possible.
Oh, that means that I've got to top my bad boys? Okay.
Oh, God.
Okay.
This is so great. I'm dying. Oh, my God.
Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, so a little bit about Magick Lab. Magick Lab was created in order to have a safe but fun forum to discuss magic and mysticism without, being exclusive, meaning that we accept and believe all faiths, or at least have respect for them. What we would like to do ultimately is to create a community of people that are functional and healthy and exchange ideas. And thank you so much for coming on board, James. You're wonderful.
Yeah. Yes. Well, the other thing that we'd like to do is we'd like to teach people how to do certain things for themselves. And when we come back, we're going to talk to James about how each and every sign is impacted and what they can do about it. We're not quite leaving yet. I'm just going to throw that out there. That's what you'll be getting when we come back. So, Marie, more about Magick Lab. We've done some fun things. We're also going to be branching off into...
We're prancing where?
I don't know. My computer just did something very strange. Anyway.
We are about to go on a break, and so we'd like to thank our production staff, SOC Radio, our producers, our advertisers, and our very special guest, James David Wade.
And Julie.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be back, and thank you.
Astrology Chat with Chrissy Lincoln, Psychological Body and Spirit. Monthly chat show, last Tuesday of the month, 1 to 3 p.m. New Zealand time. Beyond the Veil with Terry Oz. Check it out first Monday, monthly, 2 p.m. UK time. Terry shares her experiences and love of spiritual communication with those from beyond the veil. Join us live in the Sokol Radio chat room on spiritualistonline.com, or simply listen in at tunein.com and search for Sokol Radio. Advertise with Sokol Radio. 10, 15, 20 or 30-second jingles, adverts or promotions, all going out live on Sokol Radio. Promote your services, churches, groups or events at the best rates online. Work with us on shows or promotion and you could get your jingles absolutely free. For this and more, contact Julie at sokradioshows@gmail.com. The Circle of Mediums radio show. 6 mediums, healers, psychics, tarot, astrologers, spiritual workers every week, sharing spirit messages, development techniques, guidance and much more. Live in the Sokol Radio chat room on spiritualistonline.com, or simply listen in at tunein.com. Search Sokol Radio. Would you like to contribute readings, thoughts, teachings and time to this 2-hour show? Get in touch at sokradioshows@gmail.com. Spirit Weavers with Jodie White Wolf Morrison, a weekly 1-hour radio show, Thursdays 8 p.m. UK time, featuring those who are dedicated to living their spirituality and exploring how that is woven into their everyday lives through their work, practices and beliefs. Various SOC members from Spiritualist Online Network and Lyceum sharing their abilities, knowledge and more. Dates and times will vary. Live in the SOC radio chat room on spiritualistonline.com, or simply listen in at tunein.com and search for SOC Radio. Astrology Chat with Chrissy Lincoln, Psychological Body and Spirit. Monthly chat show, last Tuesday of the month, 1 to 3 p.m. New Zealand time. Spiritualistonline.com. Online since 2002, teaching all aspects of personal and spiritual development. Free to all with audio video chat rooms, members forums, and SOC radio live shows on site. The Spiritualist Online Network and Lyceum, a global oasis for spiritual awareness, development, attainment, imparting knowledge, thoughts, ideas to inspire. One site, making a whole network of spiritually informative, educational and interactive services, encompassing every faith, path, walk, religion as one. SOC Radio Encore Weekends. Listen again to various editions from SOC Radio. Quality, diverse spiritual chat, discussion, educational and spooky shows with hosts from around the world and their guests. Intermingled with amazing input from our friends at www.lightworkerreflections.com, offering their enlightened conversations, creating a space to invite spirit into the mix to enlighten our view.
Welcome back to the lab as Marie and Tony teach you all about magic.
So issues to do with self-love. And so it's really important that you take care of your own needs before anything else or anyone else. So put your own needs, to the forefront of your consciousness and really evaluate whether or not you're taking care of yourself. So for Taurus, I would say since Mars is about to enter Taurus, there's a lot of energy coming into your life. Venus is still in Aries. I would say that it will work out a lot better for you if you wait until the end of the retrograde period, whenever Venus and Mars are working more in more friendly terms with one another. Okay, so Gemini, I would say...
On a first date, right?
I'm sorry?
That means that you don't sleep with anyone on a first date.
Probably not. There could definitely be some consequences to that, like I mentioned before.
But
So
there's always extenuating circumstances.
Is necking and heavy petting okay?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I feel like I'm gonna get in a trap if I answer anything like that. So
there's no judgment here. What they'll be saying on the chat line, we have no idea. But there's no problems here.
Well, I think that I don't judge what anyone does, but I think that you should definitely consider what's motivating any of your actions. So that's a big point here with Venus. Like it's really about kind of figuring out what's making you want to do what you want to do. So to Gemini, we have Saturn and Sagittarius opposing Gemini. And Venus will soon be in Pisces, which is square Gemini. So with Chiron there, I would say that there could be some, mental either regret or anguish or even resolution. You might come to a point of making a decision about a relationship and deciding, what it is that you want to do. I'd say not to make any actionable decisions until after the retrograde, but you might make up your mind about some things and figure out, how to best go about dealing with them in regard to relationships specifically. Cancer, the energy should flow well for you after Venus stations direct in Pisces on April 14th, I believe. Sorry about that. April 15th. So on April...
You brought notes. That's great.
Yes, I definitely have notes.
And I like the fact that they're on paper as well.
Yes, I have handwritten notes.
That means something to me.
Let's see. So, anyway, yeah. Well, thanks. I mean,
date nights are going to be.
Huh?
I just want to know when the good date nights are going to be.
Okay. Well, like I said before, I think that the best date nights are definitely going to be after the retrograde's over, and probably around the middle to third week of May, because I think there's going to be a lot of processing of like emotional stuff for people, like emotional wounds or situations that were painful. And I know that doesn't sound fun, but it's stuff that has to happen. It's catharsis. That's a really great word for this whole thing here, like with Venus retrograde, is catharsis. Because whenever Venus, gets back to Pisces and stations direct next to Chiron, I truly believe that there's an opportunity for people to experience catharsis in some way, shape, or form. And that might come in sex, pardon the pun, because...
There's a pun there?
Because orgasm is a type of catharsis and release too. So it could be tears, it could be orgasm, whatever. I can't believe I'm saying this on a radio show.
It's the most fun catharsis there is, and it burns calories. Go on.
And so I think that okay. So moving on to Cancer, like Cancer and also Scorpios. Cancers and Scorpios will experience a more easy flowing energy once Venus has moved back into Pisces, whereas, like I said, Gemini will be challenged more about their thought processes, and Sagittarius will be challenged too. And Sagittarius has been having a very rough time because Saturn has been in Sag since January 2015 or so, and Saturn will be in Sag until the end of the year. So,
dear.
Yeah, I know. I'm a Sagittarius rising, so Saturn represents limitations, restrictions, boundaries, and personal responsibility. So Venus is going back into Pisces, conjunct Chiron, square Saturn, and so that could be like very, very intense for anyone with heavy Pisces and Sagittarius energy. Myself included. So I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but I have experienced the harsh energy this year, or last year, excuse me, because we're not even into this year fully yet. But 2016 was hard on the mutable signs, especially Sagittarius and Pisces.
Yeah.
I say Sagittarius. Pisces.
Even primary colors had problems last year.
Yeah, everyone was dying. All the bad things were happening. Donald Trump got elected. Excuse me. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
No. My ex is a Sagittarius, and I left him, and it was terrible. But he just recently contacted me, I think, at around the beginning of the Venus retrograde. Does that mean? Oh, really? Yeah. Baby, please, you don't even know. Yes.
I'm not surprised. I mean, I've been considering like what I'm going to write in the letter to my ex like for the past 2 days. No. I'm not kidding.
Is he going to beg me to take him back again? Because really, I'm kind of over it.
Well, I think that he's probably trying to work through this in some way, and he wants some sort of catharsis and closure or healing or something. So. There just needs to be some finality in these things. And I think that's the hardest part, because Pisces is really vague and ambiguous and watery, and you can't pin it down. So Venus moving back into Pisces conjunct Chiron, for Sagittarius making a square, which is a challenging aspect. The energy is challenging towards Sagittarius. So it's definitely not easy. And I would say that anything that happens either needs to be a definite yes or a definite no, and not leave it hanging. Because if you leave it hanging, then, 8 years from now, guess what? Somebody's going to come knocking and, trying to work things out or get closure or whatever. So I say deal with whatever it is now, and so that these things don't come back later. But I want to get to the other signs real quick. So, and these are just like little short blurbs, obviously. So I hope no one, this is not like full on astrology. So let's see.
But it's very detailed, so go on.
Okay, so Leo and let's see, I'll just talk about Leo for a second. Venus, whenever Venus, see right now, Venus is kind of making an easy flowing aspect to Leo. So this time right now is not so bad for Leo, but I think that they might be having a lot of fun. And then whenever Venus gets back into Pisces, reality might hit. And then there might be some, painful realizations about the stuff that they were doing while Venus was in Aries. And they might really have to reconsider some of the way that they were approaching relationships during that time period. Because, someone might get hurt, emotionally or something in this whole situation. So, because Leo, I love the energy of Leo. Some people love Leo, some people hate Leo. I tend to really love Leo because they're so confident. They're so secure and like showing off who they are. And, the attention that they're getting right now from Venus might feel really good, but it might prove to really not have the depth that they really need in the long term. So it's important for people with a lot of Leo energy to not just accept all of the flirtation and all of the advances that might be coming their way right now.
Okay.
Okay, and so Virgo is going to be having some challenging energy from Venus whenever she moves back into Pisces, and even right now, it's this awkward energy, and so people with a lot of Virgo energy might just be in a predicament where they're not sure what's going to happen, and they're trying to figure some stuff out, and it's just kind of very awkward. And so whenever Venus moves back into Pisces, it could just become full on like something needs to give, and I need like I was talking about before with the idea of closure. But with the Virgo Pisces axis there, it's kind of going to be more on the line of Virgos either being self-critical or maybe being critical toward others, or might have a health crisis or something of that nature. And so Venus is really like going to be amping up the energy of putting the focus on compassion and divine eternal love versus being picky and pointing out all the details, or spiritual and emotional healing versus physical healing. So that's really key. Libras right now, let's see, Libras will be experiencing, Venus is in opposition to the sign of Libra. So it's kind of like this, challenging act of balancing things. And so it's really difficult for Libras because Venus rules the sign of Libra, like we've talked about, and Venus in Aries is not easy for them to deal with because Libras can be kind of indecisive, and then Aries is like, I want action now, and I want everything to happen right now. And so Libras are just kind of like, that means I have to make a decision about things. God, I want to think about it for like, another few days or another like few years or whatever before I make a decision. And Aries is like, no. So
we are harsh taskmasters. We are harsh.
Don't mean to be.
That's okay. No, we are busting everyone's chops and no one even knows it.
And okay, so
some people know it.
So let's see.
Know it.
I know.
Okay, so right now.
Go ahead, James. We're not going to get into a cat fight. That'll be later.
Oh no, it's no worries. Okay, and then Capricorn. Capricorn might be experiencing more of that challenging energy too right now. Especially because Pluto's there, and Pluto is all about transforming things, destroying old foundations so that new foundations can be built. So Capricorn's another sign that's really had it in for them for quite a while now, and Pluto stays in a sign for a long time. The energy of the outer planets is oftentimes more nuanced, but we can see the effects globally in big ways, and then if you start digging deep, you can see it in personal ways. But Venus is making a square to it's a really weak square, but a weak square to Pluto, and so Capricorn people are probably experiencing a lot of transformations in their sense of personal authority, especially in regard to their relationships. Now that's going to ease up some whenever Venus moves back into Pisces, but then Venus is going to, move forward again back into Aries, and once again, those issues and relationships about authority and, the right to be in control and whatnot are going to come up for people with Capricorn, or even Aries energy too, with that contact to Pluto. And then let's see, Aquarius. Aquarius probably has, I would say, the least hard time in all of this for now. And that might sound like, oh, well, I mean, why are they getting off so easy? But I mean, honestly, I would just say that Aquarians are having an easier time with it. But, Aquarians have a tendency to be more emotionally detached anyway. So kind of almost fits into all of this. But like, I don't see any major hardships for Aquarius. I do think that it really depends on what's going on with Venus in their natal chart, what's going on with the houses that are, ruled by Venus in the natal chart, which is the birth chart.
Nothing ever happens to them.
Oh no, a lot of things happen to Aquarius, but they're just kind of coasting right now, and that's okay.
Oh.
I would rather be an Aquarius right now than a Pisces or a Sag. So, and then Pisces. Okay, Pisces. I could speak for a few hours on Pisces because I am one, but I would say that out of all of the signs, the Venus retrograde might be hardest on Pisces because Chiron is there, Mercury is there, the Sun is there, Neptune is there, and the South Node is there. So it looks like all of the action is going on in Pisces, and Chiron is the wounded healer. Where have you been wounded? Where have you been traumatized? And especially in relationships. And the Venus retrograde is really bringing up a lot of pain for Pisces. And also situations from the past are really coming up for Pisces. And so, whereas Virgos might be moving on to new things, and exploring their sense of, partnership, or if they want to be in a relationship or whatever, Pisces are kind of going back to the past. And things are starting to kind of float to the surface. And they're kind of looking at it and saying, "Oh my God, I thought I pushed that away from me, but here it is again," And so it's kind of like this stuff you can't get away from because the South Node is releasing things. So we're supposed to be releasing stuff, and Neptune wants us to dissolve them, but it's also this issue of things coming back because the South Node represents the past. And so the whole purpose of this is to deal with the past. And Pisces have to learn to face their fears. And so, and to have faith and to trust the universe. And so, Venus is really working one over on Pisces right now with all this stuff going on and challenging them to really evaluate some things that happened in the past so that they can let go of the pain and the trauma and receive healing, and then in turn give healing to others. So
is this a good time for people to reconcile?
I would say so. I would say that reconciliation is possible, but I wouldn't expect some sort of rekindling of the flame. And if there is, then I don't think it's going to be long-lived.
Aww. Oh, my goodness.
What a shame.
Those of us in long-term relationships, it's like, come on.
Well, no, but
that flame to burn.
but what I'm talking about though is just during this period of time. I think that maybe it's a really good time to reflect on some things, but don't put anything into action until after Venus stations direct, and then I think that it's a better idea to make any actionable decisions you want to make then. But if you want to really think about it right now and think about what you're going to do, it's a better time for that for relationships. So
I have a client that wants to know, how does this impact somebody if they're dealing with a past life situation?
Oh, well,
Oh,
that's a great question because I feel like I am too. And the South Node in Pisces, and really it's going to be, I think that since Venus is moving back into Pisces and conjunct Chiron with the South Node in Pisces, I think that maybe a lot of people are dealing with past life karmic relationships, so I think that it's important to realize that's what they are and to not get pulled into the idea that, this person is like, you're destined to be with them, because maybe it's just you're working out some karma from the past instead of, this is the person you're fated to be with. Because I feel like people are going to have some intense emotions, but they need to like kind of get a sense of where it's coming from instead of just assuming that it's something that's meant to be more than it is.
Ah, okay. Well, what about twin flames? I have a lot of clients who are twin flames. What advice would you give to twin flames at this time?
Well, I don't necessarily like spend a lot of time studying twin flames, but I do know that people have very passionate and intense relationships with others, and they call it twin flame relationships. So I'm not discounting it. I'm not saying it's not real, but I would say that this might be bringing up some things from like past lives too. I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, I'm a big believer in past lives and reincarnation, and the soul contracts we make with one another before we come into these lives. I believe that we get together as a soul group and we make contracts with one another and say, I'm going to play this role in your life. And so I think that perhaps we might be getting some flashbacks, because my personal take on retrograde planets is that it's time for us to deal with karma during those retrograde periods. It's something that I've actually thought about a lot. And so I think that with Venus retrograde, one of the biggest things I would tell people is that this is a time for there to be a balancing of karma. And that doesn't necessarily mean bad, because a lot of times people associate karma with bad, but it just depends on where the imbalance is. Were you very giving in past lives and very loving and helpful to others, or were you selfish and harmful to others? Because that karma is really being meted out right now in balance. So
everyone's
I think that,
really a little bit of both.
Yeah, and I think that you're really like getting a taste of like, that whole idea of you reap what you sow, and so, I mean, I think that, right now in Venus retrograde, things from the past are coming up, but even from the deep past of, past lives. And we're getting like flashbacks, to things that happened in other lives. And perhaps it's, evoking a lot of emotions. But the purpose of it all is for healing, because when Venus moves back into Pisces and conjuncts Chiron, the desire there is for there to be healing. So we can, if we heal it in this life and we achieve balance, then perhaps we won't have to carry this on into the next life, And so I think that's a really important thing to consider.
Okay. Interesting. Our entire show last week was on karma. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, we had a very, very deep, heated discussion about it. Some people didn't believe in it. Some people did. Some people thought that it dealt directly with numbers, the law of 3, the law of 10. Other people were like, no, it's more fluid. It was a very interesting discussion.
Wow.
Some people believe that it's instant. Some people believe it's immediate across time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people believe, I believe you can get away with it as long as you can.
Well,
if you hide the bodies.
Well, I think that, issues like karma can be seen in the natal chart easily. Like, I mean, I have very intense placements in my chart for relationships, and I mean, I don't necessarily know that like I did bad things to other people or anything like that, but there is some type of balancing going on in my lifetime in which I end up in intense situations in relationships. So I think that if nothing else, I'm learning some very powerful lessons about power and control dynamics in relationships and how those things work. So, I mean, I don't necessarily think that everything is karma and that you're being paid back or that you're having to pay into something. Perhaps sometimes it's just that we're learning lessons about something because we choose to have an experience, And so I think that during this Venus retrograde, it could be either we're learning something that we didn't quite grasp in a past life. And that might be a better approach to this than saying it's karma, to say that maybe we're having to take the test over again.
No, I'll buy
Oh
that.
no, I didn't study the first time.
Cheat
Yeah,
the
well-
second time, Tony.
Well, I mean, you're an Aries, and if you want to get really really cliche about it, a lot of evolutionary astrologers think that Aries is a new soul or something like that. But I mean, I'm not saying they all do, and I'm really kind of tongue-in-cheek joking about that because I don't know a whole lot of astrologers who still hold on to that idea. Because I know Aries who are super spiritual and evolved, and I know people who are further along in the zodiac who are the least evolved people you could ever meet. So I don't think that it's a matter of 1 through 12 and it tells you how old your soul is, But
No.
but I do think that
It's a lottery. It's basically a lottery.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the role that you chose to play this time, the costume you wanted to wear. Shakespeare said it well. All of the world is a stage, and
And as I said before, I run around naked. So
Right.
Oh dear.
so
One of these days we'll get you on network TV, Tony. One of these days, but you'll have to wear clothes.
it'll be a first. Actually, but I do want to move on to something that you were talking about before. You were very specific about Pisces and Virgo. So would this be a good time if someone is in a relationship with that to say go to an old go to a revival house and watch a bunch of old movies so they can read, so it's romantic but it's not pressure, because I believe that even if something's happening during retrograde, if something happens to be right, it's still right, even if it starts during retrograde.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the thing is, though, maybe some things are coming back from the past that people should jump back into. But I'm just giving you the traditional perspective, or the Western perspective from what I've studied on Venus retrograde. But at the same time, the caveat is, trust your intuition, listen to your higher self, and do what you believe is the best thing for your highest good. I mean, I would tell anyone that, damn the planets if you're
Damn
that
the
madly in
planets.
love.
That's what I want to
love
hear.
that. We love
Damn
you,
the
James.
planets.
So
That's what
Damn
we
the
want to talk
planets.
about.
Brilliant.
How do we say damn the planets?
planets.
That's what we want.
Yes.
Come on, tell us.
Well, no, I was just saying, I mean, if you're that madly in love, then, I feel like love is the most powerful force in the universe. And I don't think that the planets or the signs or the aspects or God or evil spirits or anything can keep love from happening. So I think that if you're in love, then you should follow your heart. And I'm such a Pisces, I'm totally a believer in unconditional love, and love is the most powerful thing, and that you should follow your heart. So I mean, if you really truly believe that that's what you should be doing, then who am I? I mean, I'm not anyone to tell someone not to follow their heart. I would just say follow your heart carefully.
Okay.
All right. So, all right.
Carefully. Okay.
We spent a lot of time on love. Let's very quickly, because I'm actually not interested. But let's talk about business. How does Venus retrograde impact business decisions and things like that?
I would not enter into a new contract with anyone or sign any long-lasting legal binding contract with a business partner or even sign a lease or anything like that. I would definitely take the time to consider the opportunity, and then later, after Venus stations direct, then I would be like, okay, so I've had time to think about this. That's been this idea that's come up. So what's my decision now? This is definitely not the time to make spur of the moment business decisions, especially involving partnerships with others.
What about a new job? What about someone getting a new job?
Well, it depends on how things are going on in their own natal chart. So I wouldn't just blatantly, because I mean a lot of this is kind of generalized, and
it's all generalized because.
Well, but I would say that some of my friends might say this is really bad astrology because it's, you have to be really precise whenever you look at people's charts. And so that's why like it's almost impossible for me to say how would this work with someone getting a new job or in a new relationship or something, except for like stereotypes. So I mean, I would say that it might not be a good time to enter into a new job, but it might also be a job from the past. I recently started working in a job situation, right before Venus retrograde. That was something I did years ago. So, I mean, it could be something like that happening.
There you go. Okay, so James, I know that before the show we talked briefly, and you said that you were also clairvoyant.
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did. Okay, Tony has just started a new job. I would like to know if you could look into his aura his whatever it is, and just tell us, is it going to be a disaster, or is he going to become the CEO?
Okay, well, give me a second.
Okay.
Well, I mean, first of all, Tony, do I have your permission to do this?
You can listen to anything you want. Because she's here.
Okay. I see stretching. I see stretching, like perhaps like this is a job that's going to stretch you, and you might actually feel like too stretched. Perhaps like it's going to be something that's going to really challenge you to. I'm just seeing like this. I see like hands stretching something, and what I'm really feeling is like this energy of you like feeling like you're stretched thin. That's what I'm trying to convey. And so you're really going to have to work on finding ways to alleviate that pressure of feeling stretched thin so that you can have some more time for yourself, which really ties into this whole Venus retrograde in Aries for you as an Aries, taking care of your own self and self-love and things like that. And so I think that whatever is going on in this job situation for you coming up, the most important message for you is to not allow yourself to become stretched too thin.
Too late for that. Thank you.
Wow, that was great, James.
Thank you. That was actually very good. That's actually very, very, very accurate.
When you're doing readings,
You get out of me now.
do you use both astrology and your clairvoyant ability, or are you using strictly astrology?
No, I mean, I definitely rely on my intuition because, anyone can learn. I think anyone can learn the basic nuts and bolts of astrology and the cookbook recipes, to say, oh, well, this is here, so it means this. But if you're going to be a good astrologer, you have to have great intuition because you have to be able to make intuitive leaps. And so I don't think that anyone can be a good astrologer if they're not able to do that. And I'm not knocking anyone, but I'm just saying that if you want to be an astrologer and a good astrologer, then you have to develop your intuition.
Now, here's a problem that I have regularly as a reader, and that is I believe in telling my client the absolute truth, but sometimes I see things that are so horrific that I have to take a pause to tell it to them in a way that won't freak them out.
Of course, you can be diplomatic, and you're a Libra, so you're good at being diplomatic.
Yeah, I try.
See that? Okay.
But how do you cope with telling a client something that you know is going to break their heart?
Well, I very carefully, because first and foremost, you have to always keep in mind that the person you're speaking to, a person, you're conveying information to another human being, and they have real emotions and real feelings. So I would always take the approach of handling everyone with care, because I want people to feel loved and cared for, and I don't ever want anyone to feel like they're just being like beaten over the head with some information. One of the things I always do, because I do a lot of written reports for people, is I always end on a positive note. Like, that is like my big thing. I always end on a positive note, no matter what.
Always leave them laughing.
Yeah, well, I mean, my key is just to make sure that someone feels, safe and at peace at the end of whatever it is that I'm conveying. Because I consider this a very sacred thing. Because, I mean, whenever I look at someone's chart, I'm looking at the very energy that is the essence of their being, when they chose to incarnate into this life. And I consider that a very sacred, spiritual practice. And so it's an honor, and it's something that I closely guard and I handle with care. And so I think you can speak the truth in love always.
Yes.
Okay.
Although, have you ever had to use tough love? Have you ever had to pull somebody aside and say, look, if you go down this particular path, you're going to ruin your life. You're going to lose your wife. You're going to destroy your career. How do you do that?
Well, I told someone who was, talking about how unhappy they were in their marriage. And, I was looking at the chart and I was saying, and I actually said it first before they did. And I said, so you have issues with marriage because of, feeling like your spouse is a drain on you or whatever it was. And they were just shocked because they said nobody knew that. Like even their friends didn't know that they felt that way. And, they were talking about how, possibly leaving their spouse or whatever. And I pointed out to them, I said, you could do that, but this energy isn't going anywhere. This is something in your chart that you're going to be dealing with, and it's going to manifest in different ways. So if you try to run away from it, it's not going to get any better. Like you really have to learn how to balance this energy out. So I think that it's possible to be honest with people and to also be firm and loving, because ultimately it's for their highest good. And I mean, that's my intent always, is to help people to grow and to love themselves more. Because if we can love ourselves completely, then we won't have any issues with other people, because other people are a reflection of the inner world that we have, whether that's peace and harmony or conflict and destruction.
Okay.
Wow.
That's very right. Well, you said you would like to keep it positive. We're moving towards the end. We'd like to once again. Where can we find you when we're not on the air?
Me? Oh.
Yes.
Sorry.
For the people, yeah.
My website is no problem. My website is PiscesPrince.com or Facebook.com/Pisces Star Prince. And people can find information on my website under services, and they can go to my Facebook page to look at my reviews if they'd like. And I try to stay active on there as well. So I do hope that I've provided some helpful information. And I would like to say again that, yes, this was definitely very general, but I do hope that it was helpful to someone in some way.
Good. Actually, what sort of services, when people come to you, what do they go to you for? And what do you specialize in? And what do you like to do the most? What's the most fun?
Well, I mean, the most frequent thing that I do are natal chart reports, and I write those myself. And each one is unique because I personally write them and spend time looking at the chart and figuring out what the big themes are. And it's not something you can just find online and Google, because I, synergistically, look at the energy and see how it's working together. And then I share with you, what this all means, tie it up together. Because if you go online and get a free report, it's just going to tell you Neptune and Capricorn in the second house. It means this. And then you might have another placement that contradicts that. It's like, so you're not going to get something specific to you. And so what I do is I break it all down. I put it in terms that are easy to understand, and I don't use a lot of astrological jargon. And I help people to understand what their personal energy is and how they can best work with it.
That's
Wow,
great.
I love that. My eyes glaze over when astrologers start to talk to me with all the jargon. I just like
Of course.
I know.
Right.
Yeah, I love that about you, James. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, please, we want you back for Mercury retrograde. Right, Tom?
I think we should have a panel. I think we should have a retrograde panel, and we should all move backward in time.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, no, panel might be interesting. Okay, absolutely. So, thank you for joining us on Magick Lab. Magick Lab, once again, is created to be a forum where people from many different faiths and beliefs and practices can come together and discuss magic. You were saying, Tony?
I want to thank our listeners, and I want to thank SOC Radio and Julie and the new person who started tonight, who's keeping us on the air. Kim, thank you very much.
Hi, Kim. Oh, my goodness. So, wow, we've covered a lot of stuff tonight. So, James, one last question, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure.
Since we have a few minutes.
Sure, go ahead.
What would you say to someone who has just ended a relationship that meant a lot to them? How do you help them get through the change? I know that Neptune dissolves things, but what other things can they do to cope with the pain?
Well, I mean, I would say that the first thing you do is you take a good look at yourself in the mirror and you tell yourself that you love yourself, and you do things that make you feel good. And, even if that's, going out and just buying yourself one piece of clothing, whatever it is that really makes you happy, and just take some special time to take care of yourself and to be around people who love you and see you for the beautiful person you are. But I mean, I know that there's really nothing but time that can truly heal those wounds and really bring you to a state of peace, whenever relationships end, unless you're really happy that it ended. So I think that for people who are devastated in relationships ending, I think it's important to realize that, time, pardon the cliche, but time really does heal all wounds, for the most part.
John Lennon said that time means all heals.
But, right now, I think that Venus retrograde is showing us that some of those wounds from the past were not quite healed all the way. So it's just important to be honest with yourself and to allow yourself to have the feelings and sit with those feelings and know that your feelings are valid and that it's okay to cry or do whatever, that's healthy for you to release those emotions, and don't beat yourself up. You're wonderful. You're beautiful. And there is a divine source that loves you and is watching over you always.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is the second episode of Magick Lab. We're here discussing the Venus retrograde with astrologer James David Wade, the Pisces Prince, who's been fabulous.
He has. And we're here every week at this time, and we're saying goodnight.
Good night. Good night, James.
Good night.
Thanks for joining us at Magick Lab. See you next time for more conjurings.
Join us on Sokol Radio. Host your own online radio show. We welcome inquiries and ideas for your own show live right here on Sokol Radio. Share your knowledge, thoughts and abilities. Bring your ideas to life here with us on Sokol Radio at spiritualistonline.com. Or join any of our shows as a special guest, speaker or presenter. Check out the liveliest spiritual chat show, the Spiritualist Open Circle Panel Forum, a monthly discussion show, or the Circle of Mediums, a weekly show sharing spirit messages and teaching all aspects of mediumship and psychic abilities. Or join our Christina on the monthly astrology show. Contact us now at sokradioshows@gmail.com or facebook.com/sokradio.